All right, Center for Spiritual Living, Palm Desert. Another glorious Sunday. It's so good to all be together in our hearts, even though it's virtual. We know that we're a community. And in the spirit of community and who we are now and what we're launching into as we're wrapping up this year, this most unique year of 2020, I wanted to talk about share some information from one of my favorite teachers, one of my favorite authors, a Unity minister named Eric Butterworth, who I think one of his most profound contributions to consciousness was a book called Spiritual Economics. Now, back at the beginning of this year, when things were normal, I taught this class. We started here in the sanctuary, and then, things changed rapidly, and then did it again online. But I wanted to take one particular class that I taught. It's a chapter entitled A New World Order. It's toward the end of the book. I think it's actually the last chapter in the book. And I want to share some information with you about this that I believe is particularly potent and important for the time that we're in. Hopefully, prayerfully, it's a reminder for each of us of what's possible in the midst of challenge, great challenge right now, great struggle for a lot of us, but also great opportunity and great possibility. And so my prayer is, as I move through this particular chat with you this morning, is that it lands in that way, that we move from problems to possibilities and to actually see what's possible during this time. Because we know that as many people that are struggling and are being really challenged right now, I hear story after story after story. In fact, I just ran into my neighbor last night whose business is thriving and booming. Now, that might be a difficult thing for some of us to hear who are struggling, but let it be a light in this time of the shortest days of the year, in this time of the most darkness, how important it is to find points of light that guide our way. I'm stunned that it is dark at my apartment by 10 minutes after 4 because the sun goes down and we're right underneath this big, beautiful mountain. But then it's dark. And so we find moments of light, games I play with my daughter, things that we do, decorating the Christmas tree, these things, points of light in the midst of the darkness. And in this season, we call it a season of light. And isn't it interesting that we call it a season of light in the midst of times when it's the darkest? And I love that. So my prayer that as we move through this material, that it's a point of light for you. That where there might be a struggle or a problem, we begin to see opportunity and possibility. So this is inviting us into a new world order, which we're being invited into anyway, whether you want to or not. So let's jump on board, shall we? Let's leap into it. Let's leap into this new world that is being created, that we are creating. Not that it's something that's happening to us, it's something that we're generating together, possibility. So he starts off by saying specifically about economic conditions, no matter how dire they appear to be. Now, isn't it interesting that he wrote this book and how many of these points are so fitting when this was written 40 years ago to the moment right now? Economic conditions, no matter how dire they appear to be, are in the world out there. What counts is how you deal with them in consciousness. Now, what do we mean by consciousness? Our thinking, our paradigm, our relationship, how we position ourselves to life. That's our consciousness. What counts is the movement of our thought. What counts is, are we considering possibility or problem? What counts is what's happening in your consciousness. So we can look at what's happening out there and make a determination about it. Dr. Joe teaches this all the time, and we know fundamentally that we think, we create. The conditions are out there, but you get to create your life in here and then recreate out there based on your relationship with it. In Romans, from Scripture, Paul says, don't let the world around you squeeze you into its mold, but let God, life, inspiration, possibility remold your mind from within. Don't let the world out there squeeze you into its mold. Let life from within you, God, inspiration, remold your mind from within. And then we begin to see new possibility. We begin to see possibility where a problem existed. We begin to entertain higher thoughts, where instead of looking at the bills that might be mounting up and there not being sufficient economic status or income to meet those bills, we begin to close our eyes, turn our attention away from the bills that are out there, and allow God to remold us from within, so we start to entertain possibility of how those needs can be met. A new idea, a new thought. I mean, for God's sake, everybody, we're in the new thought movement, right? We should be welcoming and entertaining new thoughts daily for God's sake, which is the God that's within us. So again, there may be times when we do not have sufficient money, but we can never be separated from the all-sufficiency of God's substance within. Now, earlier in the book, he talks a lot about God's substance. And essentially what he refers to is that infinite source of idea, that infinite substance. And he actually talks about it he refers to substance as something that we stand under. So in the same way that we'd stand under a waterfall or stand under the shower and be cleansed and bathed and cleaned, that we can stand under this all substance, that we can stand under idea, we can stand under inspiration in the same way that we're standing under the shower head, in the same way that we're standing under the waterfall and experiencing the refreshing nature of that. We can experience the refreshing nature of standing under of God's substance, the refreshing nature of God's substance, as it inspires us to new idea, inspires us to new thought, to meet and not meet the challenges of the day, but also thrive, to thrive. When you begin to assume mastery over your thoughts, you become attuned to the evolution, to an evolution that leads to the unfoldment of the kinds of things and experiences you desire. Again, when you begin to assume mastery over your thoughts, and folks, it's one of the very, very, very few things we can control in this world. When we're trying to control things out there, especially with new mandates for lockdowns and who knows what we can do, and the toilet paper's flying off the shelves again, and oh my goodness, and we're having conversations in here about how much toilet paper do we have and can we borrow some from the center? You can flip out. You can start to go down that rabbit hole or assume mastery over your thinking. What kind of life, what kind of things and experiences do you really desire? Seriously ask yourself, take a deep breath in this moment and just take a quick inventory. What things and experiences do you really desire? Not just being taken along for the ride, not just living a life of reaction to the world out there, but when we have mastery over our thoughts, we begin to welcome the unfoldment in our lives of the things and experiences that we truly desire. Now, call me a fool, but here's my guess. My guess is what we really desire, that what you really desire is joy, is economic sufficiency, is a healthy body. Am I on the right track? This is what we really desire. Do we really desire to live in the stress of poverty consciousness? No. Does it really add goodness to your life? Do we really want to live in the idea of scarcity? No. We want to live in the idea of the all-sufficiency, of possibility, of joy, of freedom to move, of goodness, of love and kindness in a world that works for all. I know that's what we really desire. Mastery of our thought, mastery of this. It takes discipline and practice, and that is the New World Order that we're being invited into. In the Chinese language, maybe we've heard this before, I know I've shared it before, the symbols used for the word crisis, and I think we could safely assume that to a large extent, there's crisis mode happening across the world. Danger and opportunity. The two symbols in the Chinese language for crisis, danger and opportunity. It could appear dangerous, but in the midst of the danger, what are these great in the adventure movies that we watch? Why do we get so goosebumpy and joyful, and when the victory happens after the crisis comes up and the hero, heroine almost dies and then they're victorious and they win? We feel so good about it because we've achieved victory in the face of danger. And all of those adventure characters. And so we're clear, you are the main character, the adventure of your life. Those times that we've experienced danger or the possibility for collapse or whatever it might be. But then we reach into our resource bag. We reach into our tool belt. We begin to have mastery over thought. We think of things in innovative ways. And then we're victorious. And how good does that feel? When we know that life is for us fundamentally, and because of that, we start to see and look for possibility everywhere. I've known for a while that I've had to get my windshield fixed. Big cracks, like it's like the Under Armour logo. If you saw it, there was one going from here to here and one going from there to there. So for months, I'm like, yeah, I know I need to get it fixed. Lease is about to be up. Got to take the car in. I got to get this handled before I take it back. And it's just been swirling, like I know I need to address this, and just putting it off. And I woke up Monday morning, first thing I do every day when I wake up, roll up the blinds, and I look out at the mountain. And I give great thanks that I am here. That's the first thing I do. I give great thanks that I'm here. And then I just stand for a moment and bask at the beauty of the mountain. And then on this particular Monday morning, I looked out early in the morning, and there's a mobile windshield guy fixing somebody's car. So I go out there and I yell at him, "Yo, before you leave, I need to talk to you." So anyway, fast forward 3 days, I have a new windshield. At the price, with the great man, with everything I wanted it to be is what it is. And so I just called up Julia immediately and said, you know what? Life is for me. It's great to be reminded sometimes, right? How life is for me. Like delivered a windshield to me. So cool. So that's the hardest thing about doing these things virtually, gang, is I wish we were here to together to celebrate. I almost want to call on somebody right now and say, how is life for you? How have you seen lately that life is for you? Just to have a moment during a Sunday morning to testify. I love a good testimony. Just a few people. How do we know that life is for us? Anyway, maybe after this sermon, you'll take out a pen and paper and just write down 5 ways that you know that's been demonstrated that life is for you. That you see possibility and opportunity everywhere. So the question is, in addition to how is life for you, what is the opportunity you can become aware of during these challenging times right now? What is the opportunity you can become aware of during these challenging times? Now, I never seem to get this name right, so forgive me, but Teilhard de Chardin, a mystic from back in the day, says, as folks may view the world in crisis, and I'm doing air quotes because it's actually in quotes in the book, as folks may view the world in crisis, empowered thinkers must remember the vision of wholeness. Poised with the wisdom and creativity required to take the next logical step in the progress of civilization. Now, are we being asked to progress right now, or what? Are we being asked to innovate in our progress as a civilization? Fundamentally, existentially. As a civilization right now, yes, we are. Got this guy behind the camera every day. He's just overwhelming us with ideas. I mean, that's the very picture of creativity. Just new idea after new idea. As some folks may view the world in crisis, which is fine, empowered thinkers, though, must remember the vision of wholeness, poised with the wisdom and creativity required to take the next logical step in the progress of civilization. Isn't that wonderful? We must be available to new thought, new idea, new possibility. Now, back when this book was written, Eric Butterworth says that psychologists estimate that not one person in a million, so very low statistics, very low percentage-wise, okay? Very low percentage. Estimate that not one person in a million is living up to the best that is in him or her. Like living up to the best of it. Now, I'm guilty of this. There's a blessing and a curse in there. Number one is being aware of where I'm not living up to my best and saying, okay, I've got some work to do there. The blessing is, okay, I can see where I'm not living up to my best and there's some work to do there. Let's be those people gathering with new ideas, with fresh insight to indulge our creativity. And all the people throughout history, the ones that have been called crazy, are the ones that have been the innovators. Time to find our crazy. You know, I'm kind of loosely familiar with recovery work, and some of the work I've done in years before said. One particular teacher I had said, you know what you got to do when everything's gone and you strip everything away, what you have left is you have to find your crazy, because your crazy is going to be your contribution to the world. And what is crazy? We don't care what anybody else thinks about what we're up to. That's a very challenging one to be with. But most of the time, a magnificent idea is squashed underfoot, because one of the first things we do when we have the idea is we put it out there in the world and see how it's going to be received, rather than just being about it. Guilty as charged sometimes, but sometimes I do indulge in that creativity and don't care what other people are going to think about it. But aren't those the products and services that we use in our life right now? Those innovative ideas are the ones that we're utilizing. How about being on the other side of it too, and being the one that captures the idea and then welcomes people into using that idea? Are we indulging our creativity? Wrapping up here soon. There was this thing called the Paterson Plan that was an experiment in the Northeast many, many years ago, decades ago. And essentially what it took, the Paterson Plan took 500 individuals into this experiment. 500 people that were underemployed, unemployed, chronically for years. Unemployed, underemployed, what's the word I'm looking for? Welfare, whatever it might be, and took these 500 people and for 6 months gave them classes on resume writing, self-empowerment, self-esteem, job interviews, basically all this stuff to empower them, to train and empower them. And after 6 months, 80% of those 500 found gainful employment, making a substantive contribution. What does that say to us? We need to be empowered and taught rightly. And we have that, gang. It's being taught in how to think, in how to address ourselves powerfully to the world, how to have our voice, how to stand with dignity, how to express ourselves powerfully, how to be in the midst of crisis and stand as a light in the darkness. That's what we're called into right now. To stand up tall, erect, shoulders back, with dignity, with power, with poise, and share ourselves with the world. Poverty as a collective condition can only be corrected by helping people one by one to stir up the gift of life within them. We like to do it collectively as well. To stir up the life that is within us. Then when 2 or 3 people agree to a consciousness of prosperity and creativity, a modest influence begins to take hold. An influence begins to take hold. Get with 2 other people, get with 3 people today, and agree that we live in possibility and prosperity. And then an influence begins to take hold. What does Scripture say? Whenever 2 or more are gathered in my nature, in my name, life's nature, possibility. Gather with somebody and proclaim the possibility about your life today. Describe how life is for you. Build an influential consciousness that will affect your environment and the environment wherever you find yourself. To close, Charles Fillmore gives us a mandate, if you will, an invitation, a possibility. And at the very end of the book, he says it like this. In the new era, now at its dawn, we shall have a spirit of prosperity. The principle of the universal substance will be known and acted upon, and there will be no place for lack. Supply will be more equalized. There will not be millions of bushels of wheat stored in musty warehouses while people go hungry. There will be no overproduction or underconsumption or other inequities of supply. For God's substance will be recognized and used by all people. Men will not pile up fortunes one day and lose them the next, for they will not fear the integrity of their neighbors. Toilet paper. Is this an impractical utopia? The answer depends on you, Fillmore says. Just as soon as you individually do your part in quickening the consciousness of the entire economy. Till we do our part individually to quicken the consciousness of prosperity, to quicken the consciousness of possibility. We are being called dramatically and definitely into a new world. And you and I are key players in the innovation, unfolding, and demonstration of that new world. Let's make this ride powerful. Let's go on it together and make today the best day ever. Peace and love. Beloved CSL Palm Desert community, what a unique year it has been, and a special time that we're in right now during the holiday season. Because of this unique year and this special time, Dr. Joe has a special invitation for us regarding the bridge that we're building between 2020 and 2021. So I invite you to listen and receive the message Dr. Joe has for us right now.
Thank you, Reverend Charles. And speaking to Reverend Charles, I want to thank him for his commitment to our center. Reverend Charles moved his entire family down here last year, and thinking we were going to start making this transition into the new leadership of our center. And then COVID hit, so he's spent an entire year just kind of waiting, and he's still doing a lot of work, but he's also waiting to get his hands into this transition. So I just want to thank him for his service and to acknowledge the fact that he's been here almost a full year, and we're ready to put him to work in the new capacity as our new leader. So until then, you should be receiving a letter in the mail that I sent out this week, along with your year-end statements. And I want to share this with you because it's a really important time at our center. I start every letter out that I've ever sent with gratitude, thanking all of you for your continued support us. I know it's been a real challenging year for some of you, challenging financially, emotionally, physically, all of those things. And so I appreciate the support that you've given our center. We all do. And we want to continue doing what we're doing. And like Reverend Charles said, we want to build the bridge from 2020 2020 to 2021. In order to do that, we need to recognize some of our accomplishments and some of our challenges that are ahead. One of our accomplishments, we had to pivot everything that we did in March about how we do church, how we do our center's work in education and in Sunday services. So you saw us quickly move into a place where we were able to identify ways to communicate with you. Hence, you have the 10 o'clock morning services, of which we have had close to 265 to this taping, 265 different daily services, which unless you're a news company, that's outstanding. For a center to be able to do that is just amazing work. So while the doors appear to be closed, we've never been more open and available to our spiritual community. So that's great. We've never reached more people than we had before. But the problem is it also presented a challenge, a financial challenge for us. By the end of this year, we expect to be short by about $175,000 in Sunday donations. And that's a pretty big chunk. That would take a significant amount of our savings to continue doing this. And so we're appealing to you right now during this giving season, during this holiday season, for you to step up and actually contribute a little bit more, whatever you can do to offset that amount so we can build that bridge effectively from 2020 to 2021, because we want to make sure that when the center opens, and it will, their plans, the vaccines are coming out, we got plans. I know that the cities and states are going to be lifting some of the restrictions, and as they do that, we'll be opening our doors. And we want to make sure that we've continued to sustain and maintain the talent that we've had at the center and the way the center operates. In order to do that, we need your help. We need your help, and that's what we're appealing to you to do today. So please consider giving generously this holiday season over and above what you would normally do. Again, we are short about $175,000, and it would be nice to break even or better. I call it break even or better. Let's build the bridge to break even or better for this holiday season. So thank you so much for your continued support. We greatly appreciate it. We can't wait to see you and fill our sanctuary filled with that love and energy again. Bless you this holiday season.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Charles. That was such an inspirational message today, one that I think is so timely. And I have to admit, I love spiritual economics. It's one of my favorite books, one of my favorite classes. And so it just gives us a lot to think about. I want to give you a little antidote. My mother actually created disposable diapers before Pampers ever came out. She used to throw my dirty diapers in the basement and just go buy new ones until my dad put a stop to that. So I said, Mom, if you just would have carried that one step further. So anyway, I just want to do a closing prayer and just bless you all. So let me just go within and recognizing there is one power, this divine presence, this intelligence that permeates everything. It is in every cell of our body. It is all that is seen and unseen. It is that infinite storehouse of possibilities. And I know that I am one with this divine, creative, loving presence, just as each and every one of us is. So I declare that in this time, each of us is such an important part of this unfoldment of this new world, this new way of being, and that each of us is holding that consciousness, is holding that light, being that joy at all times, and especially during this season. We are permeating this love, this joy, this creativity, and taking action where we know is necessary in a loving way for the betterment and the enrichment of this world, of this universe. So I give great thanks for this inspirational talk today, for everything that the center does all week long, and that each of you do to contribute to creating a world that works for everyone by supporting this center, by being an individual light. And so I know all is unfolding perfectly. I know that Spirit has this divine plan, and it is already done in the mind of good and in the mind of God, and it's good. It's very good. And so I let go and let God. And together we say, and so it is. Amen. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and don't forget our candlelight service that's coming up, and so we're so looking forward to all of you being there.